Dig in and turn up the volume. Live from a secure remote location, it's time to join your Bridgepointe work from home host, Michael Pereira, as he maps out the strategies and tactics you need to win in today's tough tech battle in any environment.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah.
Good morning, work from home. No, this is not a test. This is Bridgepointe, your signal in the noise. It's time to get to work. From the Bay Area to Burbank, from Seattle to New York City, roll out of bed, grab a cup of coffee. I don't care if you're in your jammies, brush your teeth, put on a clean shirt, and fire up that laptop. Pants are optional. Going on who knows what week of Coronication, we're going to do a little video conferencing from my home office. Hey, today we are on the front lines talking about managed services with Geoff Bloss, CEO of BCM One. Geoff, thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Great. Hey, Geoff, I was born and raised in California. Spent the last 25 years working in the Bay Area with some, well-known technology companies. And, until I joined Bridgepointe, which was about 7 years ago, I'd never heard of BCM One. And I have to tell you, I've been thoroughly impressed with the company and the team ever since. But, maybe it's a good place to start is for those people listening who have never heard of BCM One, how would you describe the company and, its focus in the technology space?
Sure. I've been at the business for about 8-9 years now at this point. And company has a history that goes back to the early 90s. So we're about 30 years old. And I was in the same position you were 8 years ago that I'd never heard about the firm. And I think the way to think about us is really for a long period of time, we were one of the best kept little secrets in the technology space. We were, highly focused, really regionally in the Northeast in our history. And the best way for me to describe us is, though we're a technology focused business, we're really focused on delivering managed services, managed network services out to our clients. Fundamentally, the way we look at our business is much more on the human factor side, that our business was built successfully on knowing that it is the relationship that we have with our clients, the relationship that we have with our partners, the trust that we've built up over the course of those 30 years is a key aspect and foundation of our success. The second part of it is, even though we're focused on delivering technology solutions, we understand that it's the people that work for us that make the difference at the end of the day. That our clients and our partners have the capability to procure carrier services, network services, managed services from a variety of different other providers. Many times the technology solutions are pretty comparable across that footprint. But at the end of the day, what makes us different as a business is the quality of the people and how that work for us and how they try and strive to meet and exceed our partners' expectations and our end clients' expectations. When I think about who we are and the kind of clients that we serve and where we're a good fit, there's usually three different characteristics of a successful engagement with a client. That's usually a home run for BCM. First, usually clients that are experiencing some dynamics of change within their organization. So there may be some technology transformation that's going on. There may be some significant growth. There may be some significant downsizing, but something outside the normal status quo. And there's a need for working with a provider or partner who's capable of kind of working along with them lockstep during the course of the dynamics and implementation of those changes. That's usually one aspect and dynamic where we work very successfully. Second, when you've got a client who is multi-location, they've got some geographic diversity. Usually, that geographic diversity implies that they're dealing with a multitude of different providers, and they're looking for somebody that's capable of coming in and providing kind of a single solution across a wider geographic footprint than what they may be able to get on their own is second to mention. And then I think the third, which is really harkens back to why we focus on the people aspect of our business, is usually clients and sometimes even partners themselves who've got carrier or service provider fatigue, that they're tired of dealing with the same old solutions from the big guys. They're interested in seeing what else is out there. They're interested in having a partner or service provider that's a little bit more aggressive, that's willing to work with them on some of the unique some of the unique requirements or characteristics of their environment, put together a solution that's more tailor fit for them. I think those are really the three areas where we play pretty nicely.
Nice. I joke a lot, and I told some people on your team they could use my tagline if they want. I always call you guys the Uncarrier. So if you remember the old Coca-Cola commercials, the Uncola, it was the Uncarrier. And obviously we both have very large carrier partnerships, but sometimes there's some we'll call it legacy experiences is probably the best way of saying it. So I always kind of saw you guys that way, and I'll tell you, Geoff, I sit now, on weekly project management calls with your team with some of our large accounts, and I love the statement around it's about the people, because it is, right? It's about the people you hire. We're the same way. We're always looking for quality people. They're hard to find. When you find them, you try to hold on to them. Customers are the same way, right? It's about their people, their employees, and servicing those people. So, and I really do think it's what makes the difference in how companies operate, and I'll say, speaking of the people, Geoff, right, our nation just made kind of one of the largest shifts at least in my lifetime, due to COVID-19. The vast majority of our workforce is now working from home. I don't think they're going back to work anytime soon. And even when they do, it's not going to be what it was before. And I think in a lot of ways it's good, right? People spend more time with their kids. We're learning to be productive in this environment. We're going to come out of it stronger. We'll call it more efficient, right? And I think a lot of times change may be forced, but change is typically good. I'm curious, from the things that you guys are seeing, what are the biggest challenges that you guys are seeing out there with some of your customers due to this change? And, how are you guys helping people solve those problems?
Sure. It's happening in a couple different aspects right now. First, if you're kind of triaging it, there's the stop the bleeding that's going on in some client organizations today. So, I mean, it's clear, it's pretty obvious, particularly in the SMB and mid-market space. There are a lot of clients that are just not in business right now. And I think we're trying to aggressively, we know that eventually we're going to come out of this. Eventually, the majority of those businesses are going to recover and be back in a position where their operations are up and running again. And I think the work that we do in that dimension is less technical, and it's more just trying to figure out what's a way that we can partner with that client during this period. Is there a way that we can provide some favorable financing terms for them? Is there a way that we can support them through some downturns in service and suspension in service? I think that, goes back to the point that you were saying earlier about being the Uncarrier, that for, as much as you see nice ads from the big guys on TV, at the end of the day, they're not cutting a lot of breaks to that segment of space. And I think we take the relationship far more seriously and are doing everything that we can to make sure that we keep our clients financially viable during this period. And we do the best that we can to try and match their expenses and mitigate the impact that the expenses for our services are having on their business, so that they're able to recover and get through it. I think when we saw the transition initially happen, kind of in the mid-March, late March timeframe, huge partnership with clients to try and figure out how we get their workforce to be, fully on-site, office-bound workers to now being fully remote. And so I think that the aspects there are really talking about rapid expansion of capacity that, suddenly when you have all these workers connecting through VPNs, you got them connecting remotely, you've got them accessing services that were formerly co-located with them, now accessing them on a remote basis. Significant network re-architecture that needs to happen to make sure that they're capable of supporting their organizations in that fully remote environment. Second aspect of that is also what tools do they have? What collaborative tools do they have in place? Were they really well positioned to be able to take their communications infrastructure, their collaboration infrastructure, their shared documents, SharePoint, whatever the case is? Are those tools really present, ready, and able to be portable and support them on a remote workforce setting? So I think that was really at the earliest part of the quarantine. There was a significant amount of activity assisting our clients to be able to support a fully remote workforce. I think the last aspect is really, now that you start looking at recovery, what's next and what does the road to recovery look like? And I think what we're seeing is two different factors at play. Obviously, there is going to need to be some cost rationalization over the coming months. That you can't take U.S. consumer out of an economy for 13 weeks and expect that there's not going to be bottom line impact for a lot of businesses. And, we're already seeing the decision makers, our partners on the client side, having pressure get put on them organizationally to rationalize their spend and sometimes give back, sometimes pare down, sometimes figure out how they're going to be able to save X% out of their remaining budget for the year so that they can meet what's an anticipated shortfall on the revenue side. So I think one aspect of this is how do we work with our client base to ensure appropriateness of spend, the rationalization of spend, some cost optimization services in the short term that may provide some give back and financial relief to them. Then the last aspect is how are you better prepared for this in the future? It's very obvious a lot of clients, though they're keeping their businesses running right now, they're probably doing it with rubber bands and paper clips and strings. And, while it's working today, I think that there are likely more seamless ways that they'd be able to support a remote workforce. And there's going to be a significant amount of pressure put on that IT decision maker to ensure that their organizations are better prepared for a crisis like this one, and if it happens again in the future. I mean, it's funny. Everybody talks about these being kind of 100-year events. They're never going to happen again. But in the short time I've worked at BCM, we had Superstorm Sandy hit the Northeast and take out the telecommunications infrastructure of New York City and beyond. We've had this crisis. We've had numerous winter storms that have shut down operations. It seems like every 2 years, there's some 100-year event that's causing this kind of significant impact on businesses. So we've got to be prepared for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things I always thought BCM was pretty prepared for was what I'll call it is supporting corporate IT. Like I kind of see customers separation a little bit in like production and corporate. And when all the types of services that, we leverage you guys for, I'll say, are very heavily corporate IT focused. And Bridgepointe is a company, we're 100% SaaS-based company, right? We're using Office 365, our hosted voice communications, we're using OneDrive and SharePoint and all those kind of things. So like when this hit, realistically, like nothing changed. Like I was business as usual. My cell phone works, the soft phone works, my collaboration works. All my files are in the cloud, no big deal, right? And that was a move we made actually a couple of years ago in moving everything to the cloud. And so when I look at what have I seen, I think that's a direction that the world's been moving anyway, right? SaaS-based, cloud-based, they're going there anyway. But when business is going crazy, sometimes you got to kind of shift your priorities or put stuff on the side. And I think what I saw happen is like, okay, hey, that stuff that we didn't move, with the premise-based exchange now needs to go to Office 365 or the file server that needs to go to OneDrive or SharePoint or, whatever it may be. It's like now is the time we need to get it done because people aren't in the office, they're at home, right? And so, I think you guys are actually set really well for it because when I look at all call it the Microsoft services that you guys provide, temp service and those things, I think it plays very well into what you guys do very strong. And I think when I look at like I said, the last years I've worked with you guys have slowly but surely keep adding complementary services to your portfolio, so like one of the first things I was introduced to with you guys was Sophia, we'll call it TEM services. And I think in today's world, managing cost, optimizing spend, making sure that you're being billed what you should be billing, that's very relevant, right? And how that ties in the carrier space. You guys, I'll say, built a Microsoft practice through acquisition and growth, both, Azure, Office 365, and then, recent acquisitions of SIP. I think all very complementary, Geoff. What's next for you guys, right? What else do you see kind of coming into the portfolio for you guys in the future?
Yeah, tough to say. I think probably would have had some different plans and thoughts prior to the pandemic. I think obviously the impact on financial markets from the pandemic, the impact particularly on the debt market, I think kind of changes the philosophy of how we look at acquisitions at this point. Definitely have a lot of interest in the what I would call kind of the managed wireless 5G space. I think an adjunct to that is also the IoT space. So there's a lot of very interesting things that we're seeing out there in terms of managing and delivering connectivity to, you see it in restaurants, the kiosks that sit in restaurants, that sit on tabletops, things like that. You see it in malls, you see the digital advertising footprint. There's a lot of really fascinating things that are, we think, very closely related to our space today, where clients would be able to take advantage of the pre-existing relationships that we have on the carrier side And I think if we were able to extend ourselves into a more complete wireless solution, a more complete, particularly with the advent and delivery of 5G services, and then something that has some intelligent devices sitting on the far end of that connectivity. So it's beyond just the connectivity itself, the managed network component itself, but some management of devices that are delivering intelligence back to the other aspects that we can offer to a client, the Azure services, et cetera, if that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, it's really smart. Once again, complementary what you do, leveraging carrier partners that you've been leveraging for years. The 5G IoT space is huge. I mean, it's not going anywhere. I was kind of joking around, just looking at myself. Like, I think living on my cell phone, apps on the cell phone, and all those things, and how businesses are operating now, it's all going to come into play. And I think
totally.
Just based on your guys' partnerships and your expertise, it's a great place to kind of be moving towards. So I think that's really smart. I think the last question I have for you, and this one, may be a little more difficult to answer. Some of the people on your team, I've always thought of you guys as domestic U.S., right? Domestic U.S. And I think, managed services are one of those things that globally, you guys have the people and the talent and the systems and those things to kind of expand. But global is another deal, right? I mean, it comes with a really unique set of challenges, relationships, that are slightly different than, what we kind of deal with in the U.S. What are your thoughts on BCM as a global partner? Your team's kind of saying, hey, Mike, you should look at us for some of these global opportunities you guys are working on, and love everything we've done with you guys to date. How would you kind of answer that? Like, where do you feel like you're going to bring value to that kind of global market?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to where we started. Our trust is built on being honest with our partners and our clients about where we're a fit and where we're not a fit. I would be deceiving you or attempting to deceive you if I went out there and said that we're going to be a global international business. I mean, we're a U.S.-based business. That's where the vast majority of our revenues are derived from. It's where our team is really based out of. We have really at the end of 2019, start of 2020, we've gone into partnership with a few different providers and aggregators that provide carrier services on an international footprint basis. We think that we've got a pretty strong team that's capable of partnering with those clients to provide remote support and then local hands on site in those international markets. Really where I think, our value proposition would be for clients that are really highly focused still in the U.S., but they do have some significant presence outside the international area. That, when it's a U.S.-based corporation that's largely driving the decision-making process, the significant portion of their spend is U.S.-based, but there is some international footprint that needs some support. We've been fortunate to deal with a few opportunities that are, again, largely U.S.-based companies that do have some significant investment overseas. And I think we're able to kind of step in a market with them rather than them having to establish independent relationships in each one of those smaller international pops. We're able to absorb those international pops under the broader footprint of an overall U.S. relationship and a U.S.-based company, if that makes sense, Mike.
Yeah, it does. And, I appreciate the honesty about it, right? I think it's the old 70-30, 80-20 rule where it's like, hey, if 78% of your sites are in the U.S., decisions making are made here, a good spend here, but you have a handful of things happening there, we're still a great fit for that. We'll apply the same kind of level of, integrity to the entire network, not just the ones here. So I appreciate the honesty about it. And obviously I think over time that footprint for you guys will grow and, and keep expanding the business that way. Well, hey, Geoff, I'll tell you, I really thank you for sharing all your time with me today. I look forward to working with you and the team at BCM to provide, I'll call it human-focused technology solutions to kind of steal your guys' word. Appreciate it again, Geoff. Really do. And stay safe.
Mike, thanks for the time and stay safe, stay healthy.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today on Good Morning Work from Home. And remember, together we can keep business moving forward for our families, for our companies, for our economy, and for our country. Stay safe. This is Bridgepointe, your signal and noise signing off. Take care, Geoff.
Thank you.
The day destroys the night.